Well, at 1:30 today, our Friday feature film, certainly in its exciting tale of sabotage, called Nobody Runs Forever. So take your seats, please, in half an hour. This is Thames from London. News time now at the studios of ITN. It's 1 o'clock.
This is the News at 1 from ITN with Leonard Parkin.
Hello, good afternoon. Hot on the heels of the budget and the 0.5% cut in interest rates by the banks, two of the biggest building societies have made their home loans cheaper and sooner than expected. Conservative MPs are clamouring for a change in the bail laws after the revelation that one of the men who murdered PC Blakelock in the Tottenham riots was out on bail charged with another murder at the time. We'll be looking at what the law says. And in other stories today, America moves warships in striking distance of Iranian missiles in the Gulf. Exclusive pictures from Saudi Arabia as the king prepares for a state visit to Britain. And why cheerleading in America is leading to tears. A weekend tonic for homeowners. Two major building societies have cut their mortgage rates in the wake of Wednesday's fall in bank interest rates. First in this morning was Abbey National, dropping their rate down by 1.1% from 12.3 to 11.25%. The reduced rate will come into force from May the 1st for the Society's existing borrowers and straight away for new applicants. Later, the Halifax, the country's biggest building society, dropped its mortgage rate by 1% to 11.25%. Other societies are now expected to follow suit.
The Abbey National and the Halifax moved faster than had been expected to bring down the mortgage rate. After Wednesday's modest 0.5% fall in bank base rates, a cut in the cost of mortgages was inevitable. But the building societies were uncertain about how much and when. The Abbey National is now convinced that bank interest rates will come down even further.
Well, I think we've seen 2.5% falls in base rate, and we expect to see another 0.5% coming off in the next couple of weeks or so. So rather than take off the expected 0.75% off the mortgage rate, we've taken a full 1% off today, effective on the 1st of May for our existing borrowers and for new applicants straight away.
The Abbey National has brought its rate down by more than 1%, but on the basis of a 1% cut, this is how much borrowers will save on a 25-year repayment mortgage. For someone with the average existing mortgage of £15,000, the cost will come down by nearly £5 to just over £119 a month. Someone with the average new mortgage of £25,000, repayments will be down £8 a month at just under £200. And for someone with a £35,000 mortgage, the cost will be down £12.77 to just over £283.
A cut in the mortgage rate was just the icing that Mr. Lawson was looking for on his budget cake. And it'll have the additional benefit for the Chancellor of bringing the inflation rate down in the coming months. Mark Webster, News at 1, the Abbey National headquarters.
There's a bit of icing in there too, because the cost of living marked time in February. The annual inflation rate stayed unchanged at 3.9%, although prices during the month did go up 0.4%, and that was mainly through petrol, fresh vegetables, cars, and car maintenance. President Reagan, giving his first formal news conference since the Iran arms scandal broke in November, has said he would do things differently if it happened again. He said, "I wouldn't go down the same road again." But he insisted that he would continue to explore every legitimate means to get American hostages back. Most of the briefing was devoted to the arms affair, with only a short reference to the possibility of reinterpreting the anti-ballistic missile treaty, a suggestion condemned today by TASS, the official Soviet news agency. But as Tim Hewitt reports, the president was being judged not so much on what he said, but on how he said it.
The president's called them sharks circling in the water. Last night, members of the press corps were allowed into the inner sanctum of the White House for their first chance to confront him for 4 months.
Please be seated. I have
Mr. Reagan, clearly conscious that the criticism he's faced has produced signs of a public backlash against the media itself, was determined not to be rattled.
The only thing I've done casually since I've been here in these 6 years is hold a press conference.
Frequently referring to prepared notes as he picked his way through a potential minefield without apparently adding to the wounds he's already suffered. His last appearance here produced some notable blunders, not least the claim that no third countries had been involved in shipping arms to Iran. It had prompted immediate alarm amongst his staff.
When they told me this, and when I finished bumping my head, I said to them, quick, write down a correction of this. I didn't realize that in there, maybe I'd talked too long. I said, I didn't realize that I had said that or given that impression.
It would seem now that only evidence the president knew arms money went to the Nicaraguan Contras could further weaken his position. He's denied it before, he did so again.
Is it at all conceivable that you may also have forgotten being told about the diversion of funds to the Contras?
Oh, no. You would have heard me from without opening the door to the office if I had been told that at any time. No. And I still do not have the answer to that money.
And on his dealings with the Iranians, still no acceptance that the original policy was flawed, only that painful lessons have been learned.
If you had it to do all over again, sir, would you do it again?
No, I would not go down that same road again.
And those who sought to suggest he'd misled the American people found it was they, the messengers, who were to be blamed for that.
You distressed that even your own polls show that a majority of American people believe that you are not telling the full truth.
Well, in view of what they've been reading and hearing for all these several months, I can understand why they might think that.
At the end, the press corps sharks moved in, perhaps hoping for one more bite at the president, but after giving them 30 minutes of his time, he escaped unscathed. And for White House officials who'd been preparing him for this encounter, that's good enough. Ronald Reagan is seldom at his best without a script. Today, there's simply relief that no more damage has been done. Tim Hewitt, News at 1, Washington.
The United States Navy has moved an aircraft carrier group within striking distance of new Iranian missiles in the Gulf. The land-based Iranian missiles could destroy a merchant ship passing through the strategic Strait of Hormuz to the big oil terminals. The Americans say they've got the missiles within range and that they're also considering escorting commercial ships through the danger zone.
On the southern side of the Straits of Hormuz is the Sultanate of Oman. From Goat Island, which projects into the straits, men from the Sultan's forces monitor the shipping passing into the Persian Gulf. They can see right across the waters to Iran on the northern side. It's there that new missiles have been installed, able to hit anything passing through these waters. About 20 large oil tankers pass in and out of the Gulf each day, some heading for Iran's own terminals, others bound for Bahrain and Saudi Arabia. The US aircraft carrier Kitty Hawk has been moved to the area. This means that the Kitty Hawk and 10 other ships are now stationed in the Arabian Sea. Inside the Gulf, another 7 US warships patrol. Close by, the British Navy still maintains a presence of 2 frigates, ready to intervene if necessary. The new Iranian missiles are stationed on the northern side of the straits. They have a range of up to 50 miles, able to hit any shipping that passes in and out. The US State Department is concerned.
The United States has made repeatedly clear that the Persian Gulf is an area of vital concern to us and to our friends and allies around the world. Since last summer, vessels serving neutral Gulf Arab ports have increasingly been the target of Iranian attack. We remain concerned about these attacks and continue to discuss such threats with Gulf states.
The missile the Iranians have obtained is an old Soviet design. The Chinese have adapted it to be fired from land. It carries a 1,000-pound warhead able to destroy an oil tanker. The US carrier battle group is not expected to act against the missiles yet. Its presence is aimed at deterring the Iranians from using them.
The king of one of the states close to the Gulf crisis arrives in Britain next week for an historic visit to discuss key areas of Middle East policy with the Prime Minister. King Fahd of Saudi Arabia was invited by the Queen, who visited his country in 1979. 7 years ago, Britain and Saudi Arabia fell out over the television program Death of a Princess. For the first time since then, a British camera crew and a reporter have been allowed into the country, and in the first of a series of special reports, Paul Davies has an exclusive interview with the King.
To the outside world, this is still the romantic picture of Saudi Arabia. In reality, most Bedouin tribesmen have long abandoned their camel herds. Riyadh, capital of the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, claims with some justification to be the fastest growing city in the world. Looking more like Dallas than an Arabian capital,
It's from here the Saudis dominate the world money markets, and all because a freak of geology gave them the richest oil fields in the world. During the 1981 peak, it was estimated Saudi Arabia was earning £200 million a day in oil revenue. The present King Fahad, whose family, the House of Saud, have ruled the country for more than 60 years, is a vital ally of the West. From their strategic position in the Gulf, the Saudis exert a moderating influence over their Arab neighbours. And with Iran and Soviet-occupied Afghanistan so close to her borders, the West are desperately concerned that the Saudis' riches should not fall into less friendly hands. That's why every morning at Riyadh Airport, the first of 6 American AWACS spy planes sets off on a patrol of the Gulf Coast, watching primarily for Iranian air movements. And why Britain negotiated its biggest ever arms deal, supplying the Saudi Air Force with 72 Tornado fighters among 130 military aircraft to help protect the West's interests. The traditional Bedouin guards still accompany the king on his travels, but today he relies on a 20th century army, with the latest weaponry supplied by his Western friends.
Welcome in my country.
Before setting off on his visit to Britain, King Fahad gave ITN his first ever interview for British television. After praising the special relationship between his country and Britain, the king appealed for a united effort to end the slaughter of the Iran-Iraq war.
المآسي اللي ممكن يشرحها الإنسان هي أنها
We are talking about one of the greatest tragedies and sadnesses to afflict 2 nations. A terrible disaster that is still taking thousands of lives. There has been enormous destruction, and a generation of young men, the future of their countries, is being lost. This must force us to look for peace with help from the United Nations and the many countries who share our belief.
The king said he was looking forward to renewing his friendship with the royal family. The Prince and Princess of Wales were guests at his palace last year. It's also hoped the visit will signal more contracts between Britain and Saudi Arabia. King Fahad's family are both the royalty and government of their country. His many brothers and cousins hold most of the key ministerial roles. But it's the Islamic religion that sets the rules by which they govern. In stark contrast to the newly acquired trappings of the 20th century, women still cover their faces outside the home, and adultery is a capital offence, following the strict code of the Quran. The power of religion is spectacularly demonstrated each year when Muslims from around the world make the Hajj, the pilgrimage to Mecca. This a sight normally denied Western eyes. Only Muslims are allowed into the holy city, where more than 1 million people make the traditional 7 circles around the holy shrine. In Saudi eyes, the shrine is their greatest treasure, worth more than all the oil fields. Paul Davis, News at 1, Riyadh, Saudi Arabia.
Well, here at home, Conservative MPs are calling on the government for an urgent review of the Bail Act, following yesterday's murder convictions in the Blakelock case. One of those jailed, Winston Silcott, committed the murder while on bail on an earlier murder charge, for which he's now serving a life sentence. The bail was allowed by Judge Robert Limbury, who maintains he was right under the law. In the statement, he said there'd been no evidence for refusing bail on the only 2 issues put before him. First, that Silcott might have absconded, and that prosecution witnesses had been got at. Judge Limbury said he knew nothing about Silcott's previous acquittal on a different murder charge, although he did know he'd been convicted of unlawful wounding. His decision was based on the 1976 Bail Act, which gives 3 main grounds for refusing bail, but does allow defendants the right to bail unless evidence shows otherwise. One MP calling for a review is the Conservative lawyer Ivor Stanbrook. He says bail shouldn't be available to people facing murder charges. With me now is Simon Lee, who lectures in law at London University. Mr. Lee, many people, I imagine, will find it extraordinary that people facing murder charges could be allowed out on bail anyway.
Yes, I'm sure that's true, but the starting point, as you suggested, is that Parliament itself laid down in the 1976 Bail Act that a person is presumed innocent until proven guilty and therefore has a right to bail unless the judge is satisfied that there are substantial grounds for believing essentially one of 3 things. Either that he will abscond while on bail, or that he will commit another offence while on bail, or that he may interfere with witnesses. Now what happens is that The police argue those grounds before the judge, and in this case the judge said only 2 of the grounds were argued.
So perhaps it's the police who were at fault in this case.
Well, we don't really know all the facts. We don't know if anybody was at fault, but the judge said that there was no evidence the man would abscond. He had a job, he didn't have a passport, he had a secure family home, and the judge said there was no evidence that he was going to interfere with witnesses because the only suggestion had been at a time when the man was in prison already.
Does a judge have his hands totally tied by that act, or can he use his common sense and take other things into consideration?
The Act says that he should take account of at least 4 factors, namely the nature of the offence, and here you could say it's a very serious offence. Secondly, he can take account of the man's character, his antecedents, his associations, and there again you might say that perhaps more of the record should have been given to the judge. Then he can take account of whether the man has jumped bail before, and finally what the case looks like, whether it's likely he's going to be found guilty at the end of it. Now it looks as if the judge didn't have a complete background to the defendant's record, but then the acquittals in the murder case, you probably wouldn't expect that he'd be told about that.
Mr. Lee, thank you very much for joining us. Thank you. Well, on the Broadwater Farm estate in North London itself, the defence committee set up for the trial is again demanding a public inquiry into the riots. It says the 3 convicted men are innocent and is considering an appeal against the verdicts. The committee blames the media and says the court meted out revenge, not justice. The protests were made at a press conference attended by Silcott's father and the son of Mrs. Cynthia Jarrett, whose death during a raid by police looking for him sparked off the disturbances in 1985.
What developed into a highly passionate press conference began with the circulation of the Broadwater Farm Defence Campaign statement on yesterday's Old Bailey verdicts.
The community in Tottenham is outraged and disgusted at the verdict, which is regarded, along with the sentences passed, as despicable. We're to treat our young people picked up on no evidence, to satisfy the police desire for revenge for the death of P.C. Blacklock.
Community leaders said they wanted to appeal against a guilty verdict they felt a panel of 3 judges rather than a lay jury would not have allowed. They blamed the media's influence.
Even though we've lost all faith in the system, we say that there's no way 3 judges aware of the law could possibly have reached the kind of verdicts that the jury reached. We believe that you people here had a lot to do with those verdicts.
Winston Silcott's father broke down in tears as he said his son had been crucified.
Silcott is innocent with this. All these things are in the paper here to dispraise him. Yes?
And Floyd Jarrett, whose mother's death sparked the riot, broke his silence to blame the police for not bringing what he called her murderers to book while making Silcott a scapegoat.
Winston Silcott, I went to school with him, I know him so well. It's like they've killed my mother all over again. What they've done to him yesterday, the injustice.
So far, there's been no violent reaction here on the Broadwater Farm estate to news of yesterday's verdicts. But the sheer strength of the feelings expressed at this morning's press conference demonstrates that the tensions which erupted here so tragically 19 months ago still haven't gone away. Charles Hodson, News at 1, Tottenham.
The pop singer Boy George was given a 2-year conditional discharge in London this morning after admitting possession of cannabis. The Highbury magistrates were told he'd fought back against drug addiction, almost from death.
Defence, Mr. Raymond Sturgis told the court that George O'Dowd had actively helped the police in the fight against drugs. In a recent drugs trial, he had given important prosecution evidence which had resulted in drug dealers being imprisoned. The court was also told that George had tried hard to re-establish himself. Having seen him as low as he was, said Mr. Sturgis, he came back almost from the point of death. It had been an uphill battle, but many of us would not have had the strength of character to fight back in such a way. Dressed in black trousers and a purple jumper, George sat listening quietly, pulling his fingers nervously. The Chief Magistrate, Mrs. Maria Black, told him, "You have made amazing efforts to come off drugs, and so far you seem to have succeeded." Giving him a conditional discharge, she told him to be careful in future. As Boy George left court, he was besieged by a small group of fans and the press. He left saying, "I'm very glad." Joan Fairkettle, News at 1, Highbury Magistrates Court.
Cheerleading has always been as American as apple pie, but now there are calls in the States to ban it because it's too dangerous. The pastime once associated with waving pom-poms has now become more athletic, as college teams dream up ever more daring stunts to cheer the home team on. Under the pressure to put on a good show, hundreds of young people have been injured, and there's even been one death.
It started as a sideshow on the sidelines, cheerleaders warming up the fans at American college football games. Now it's developed into a show of its own, with cheerleading teams developing ever more spectacular stunts. Last autumn, Janice Thompson died after falling 30 feet from a pyramid at North Dakota University. Her death and hundreds of other serious injuries have brought calls for a ban on the stunts that look amazing but can prove fatal. Dale Baldwin was the captain of the Kentucky cheerleading squad. An expert on the mini trampoline, he nonetheless fell, broke his neck, and is now paralyzed. The problem is, college sport cheerleading has become an obsession on some campuses. In this highly competitive society,